Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today it's going to be the update to the Easy SORC for the Deadlands DLC. Now I know, people get bored of the videos because they're too long and there's loads of information and people don't want information. But I also know where you skip to. So let's skip to the good stuff, shall we? We're going to go in the stats first of all, and then we're going to go straight to the gear. Yes, we're doing it before skills this time. So, going to put our buffs and bonuses on. This has been used, by the way, for years. Quite possibly the world's most popular sorcerer build out there, if you just go by YouTube views alone. We are on 33.9k max magicka with 978 recovery, 26.1k max health, and 15.3k max stamina, which is really helpful for dodge roll and blocking and all that good stuff. 57.6% crit chance, but that actually goes to 63 when we use one of our minor bonuses from our skills here. And we also have over 7k weapon and spell damage, or spell damage in fact, when we get into content, depending on your buffs and bonuses. But at the moment, we're sitting on a flat 4.5. With our own bonuses applied, we actually go over 5k easily. Now, the resistances did fall off, of course, as you saw, but they're on 20k and 16k, which is really nice for a magicka build. And of course, we're using flat food. Max magic, max health. That's it, the blue stuff. I know it says 0, 0 there, that's a bug. It's 5.3k max health and 4.9k max magicka. Thief Mundus Stone, and of course 64 points into magicka. Now this is very, very simple to use. Anyone in the game can use it at any stage, but there's going to be lots of different variations of it. So we're going to go over a beginner version, we're going to go over the actual overall version, and then there's some other options as well if you really want to. So if you're brand new, then you will get a lot out of this. If you're really experienced, then you'll get a lot more. It's designed for all content, and there's nothing in the game this can't do. So we're going to use the armory station for the gear. Now the main setup, don't be scared first of all. Yes, there's trial gear there, but don't worry, this can be acquired on normal. The normal trials for Craglorn, all three of them, anyone you like, just spam it on normal, you will be fine. You don't have to do any vet stuff. Even the armor from the dungeons, you don't have to do it on vet. The only thing you need on vet is the monster mask, but don't worry, we can change that as well. The maelstrom weapon, as you can see there, that doesn't need to be on vet either. The whole setup can be done on normal, except for the monster set. So, first of all, we're actually using Undaunted Infiltrator Lightning Staff, and we're using three pieces jewelry. That is a medium set, but now we've changed it so it can actually go on a light set, basically, because we're not using up any of our armor slots for it. 2 stamina bonuses, it's very nice for our flat resources for CC, sprinting, dodge roll, and block, and all that kind of stuff. And we've got spell crit. As you can see there, that used to be weapon crit, now it's both. So, we've got a contribution to our spell crit there. All you have to do is activate a magicka skill, which we will be doing on our front bar all the time, and it will give us 10 seconds worth of increased light and heavy attacks. Now, if you are familiar with the game, you know that light attacks are some of the strongest hitting abilities in the game, even though they're free, and this boosts it. But also, this does boost our main resource recovery attack as well. We will be using heavy attacks in our rotation occasionally, and this boosts it dramatically. Also, if the target is off balance, which we can apply ourselves with a certain setup, then the heavy attack not only stacks from this bonus and all of the rest of your stats, but it also gives you a 70% increase to that on top, which also stacks with Infallible Ether. Now, Infallible Ether is on the body. Yes, this improves our light and heavy attacks, but this improves the heavy attack pop at the end. It's really, really dramatic, and these two combined, especially during off balance, where you get a 70% increase to your heavy attacks, is really, really nice. So while we are using a heavy resource costing spammable, we can gain back our resources with a heavy attack like you're supposed to do, and we benefit from the extra damage from that. Most setups don't really spec into heavy attacks at all, so when they do heavy attack, they tend to lose DPS. For us, we do not. We actually keep a really, really steady pace on our DPS while doing splash damage and area of effect while maintaining our resources. It's all built up to balance out, so we've got a really good match of spammables, dots, and resource gain while still maintaining DPS. This can be acquired again on normal. Every single one of these in divines with magicka on them. Now, the monster set itself is actually Zant. These two need to be medium. These are all light anyway. These need to be medium if you can help it. It's not the end of the world if it's not, but it makes a difference if you do go for medium because of your passives. This will give us a crit chance bonus, and it puts a flamethrower on the target, which gets aggressive every second that it's on, and then of course there's a big cooldown in between. It will run for 6 seconds, then it will be applied again in 18 seconds time. If you are lucky enough, of course, you have 33% chance from a light or heavy, but every tick of the heavy actually counts, so it's really easy to apply. There is a 12-second gap between the finish and the start of a new one though. This does also scale off of your highest weapon and spell damage, which for us is going to be spell damage. Now, if you don't have access to this because maybe you're struggling in that particular dungeon because you do have to go onto vet to get this particular item, you can, of course, use other sets instead. You can go for Groftar, which is actually very, very nice indeed. You can go for this, which will put a flame circle around you if you do damage. Or you can go for Jeff. Jeff is a favorite for this build forever, and it's really, really powerful. You summon a Daedroth just because you do a light or a heavy attack, and he breathes fire and punches people in the face. Lasts for 15 seconds, you can reapply him straight away. So you can have, if you're lucky, 100% uptime on him. Top end, they're roughly the same. This one feels more single target because of its burst, but for consistency's sake, I mean, just to make things simple, and it's an easier dungeon to acquire it as well, stick to Jeff all day long. Really, really strong. Now, the other setups. Oh, of course, the main weapon on the back bar. I did miss that. Maelstrom weapon. Lightning staff with a shock glyph if you don't have off balance already covered by your group. If you do have off balance covered by your group, then you can change that to a flame staff with a flame glyph instead. That's the only time you can do that. You need off balance in your group for you to utilize your heavy attacks to be able to sustain your heavy resource costing spammable. If it's covered, great, you can take advantage of it. If it's not, you need to be the one to bring it. That's very important, and that's why on the dummy, when that's being tested, it's based on a scenario that is already optimal, if you like, for this particular purpose. So the dummy has off balance on it already. So therefore you can use the flame stuff because it's already covered by your group. Now, the other options, if you don't want to go down this route, because it is the same setup as before and it's very, very powerful, this is really, really in a good place now. It's hitting around 90k average just by sticking to a very simple rotation. But if you want other options that are very, very similar with output, just bear in mind, of course, we don't have Empower right now, and we do not have Minor Force, so you could get that from your group as well. You could use this instead, which is an optional setup. You can use Medusa Lightning on the front bar. Bear in mind, if you swap bars, you're going to lose your Minor Force. It's not the end of the world, but that's something to consider. This will give you Minor Force the whole time you're on this bar, and a massive crit bonus. And the second set, of course, is Galerian. Now, Medusa needs to go on the jewelry because it's a heavy set. So you want to change it to 2 Bloodthirsty and Infused, just like the last one. However, Galerian is a light set. This does not require any vet content either. So the Monster Mask is the same choice as the previous, or you can go with Jeff or Groftar, whatever you've got to hand, even Alambris if you like. That's the only vet content you need to do. Back bar weapon can be Flame or Shock, depending on off balance. You can get that on normal also. This can be acquired on normal. This can be acquired on normal. This can be bought. It's from PvP, but you can buy it. You can get it with Telvar Stones, or you can get it with money just by buying it off players. Very, very simple to get hold of, but this has a crit bonus, a magicka bonus, recovery in fact, which is really nice for our resource recovery. Max stamina and weapon damage increase, and every time you deal a light attack or a heavy attack, remember we're built for those, you'll put a mark on the target for 15 seconds, which is a really long time. So even if you're not good with your light attacks or heavy attacks, it's not hard to maintain. Once you get to 5 marks, it goes boom and detonates on the target. If you're really good with your rotation, this can fire rapidly. If you're not really good with your rotation, it actually stacks up multiple marks during a heavy attack channel of a lightning staff because each tick counts as an individual hit. So if you are just heavy attacking during your rotation, rather than using the light attack variant, you will still maintain this. It's very, very powerful, very easy to apply. And finally, the beginner's setup. This is very simple and very effective. While both of these can actually output around 90k, this can actually put out about 82, 83, sometimes 84 if you get lucky with your crits. Now this, on the surface, doesn't look that strong because we don't have it equipped at the moment. But look at the stats here. Precise is 7.2% chance for crit. You can see the glyph on the back here is 3.9k. Let's equip the build. Ignore the really bad costume. 14.4% crit chance. 7k flame glyph. This is bonkers. This is your crafted setup. The Maelstrom weapon doesn't have to be on here, but if you can do normal Maelstrom, fair enough. The Monster Mask, we've gone as easy as possible. We've gone with Groftar, very simple dungeon, especially on Vet. But we're using Turg's Pack Lightning Staff on the front. Yes, of course, you can double bar if you don't have Maelstrom. And Turg's Pack Jewelry. Again, this doesn't have to be in any particular order, but you want Turok's Pact on the front. The reason you want it on the front is to manage both glyphs when you're on the front bar. We want this to give us consistency all the time. Heartland, Conqueror. Make this in light, get Magicka glyphs all over it, and all you need to do is understand what the 5th piece bonus does. Everything's actually done for you. This will give you spell damage and weapon damage, maximum stamina, maximum Magicka. Happy days. But it will increase the effectiveness of your weapon traits by 100%. So our back bar weapon trait is improved, so it's stronger. And our front one is improved, so it's stronger. Double the crit, double the damage, and the weapon glyph is stronger, and the flame glyph is stronger because Turok's Pact makes your glyphs stronger and forces a faster rate of fire. It reduces the cooldown. So we have a really high uptime on our weapon and spell damage. We have a really high rate of fire and increase to the glyph itself. Now again, remember, if you don't have off balance in your group, this needs to be a lightning staff with a shock glyph. If you do have off balance in your group, then of course fire is fine. Front bar needs to be lightning regardless. So you've got 3 options there. The dungeon stroke PvP version, which is purchasable, remember. The if it's not broken, don't fix it version. And of course, the beginner setup, which is very simple to use. You don't actually ever need to go for these other versions, but if you want to, you can. Now we're going to go into the skills and explain how this all works. I need to put my build back on. So, we are using Summon Twilight Tormentor. Now this is of course in a Daedric Summoning skill line. Starts off as the Winged Twilight, morph it to Tormentor. This one does damage, the other one heals. Activate this every rotation once until the enemy is below 50% health. This will only give you a boost to damage for the pet while it's above 50% health. When the target goes lower, stop pressing it. It will just hit by default. It does everything for you. You don't have to do anything. Keep this on both bars, otherwise it will die. You have to have it double barred. Daedric Tomb. This is very simple to apply, but if you get really skilled with it, you can get a lot more out of it. This is technically our spammable, but you will sometimes light weave between it, sometimes heavy weave between it. It is expensive, but it starts off as Daedric Mines, morph it to Daedric Tomb. This will put 3 mines on the ground. Each one that hits a target will pop, doing direct damage, and it will do magic damage, of course, and immobilize the target if they can be immobilized. This is very, very powerful, and if you can aim very well, you can actually make this go off twice on any target in the game. If your group is playing towards your group's strengths, and you've got very active and capable tanks that can sometimes work in your favor when it comes to positioning enemies, you can do one of 2 things. You can hit multiple targets with these all at once. You can hit 3 at once. Or you can hit the target, the one target, with 3 at once if you put enemies near walls or corners or anything like that. So a bit of a tactical advantage there. If you start taking enemies into certain places, you can lean these up against a wall or a platform or anything that's solid and actually make all 3 go off at once. But regardless, if you're not very good at aiming it, put it under the target, it will pop and it will leave 2 more on the ground. The enemy will pop in it again or something else will run into it. Still lots of damage. But if you do get good at it, 2 at a time almost all the time. Very, very handy indeed. Next up is Hardened Ward. This is in a Daedric Summoning skill line. 4th ability to unlock. Starts off as Conjured Ward. Morph it to Hardened. Quite simply put, this is your damage shield. This does cap out at 60% of your max health. So yes, of course, the more health you have, the stronger this will be. But just bear in mind, you do need a decent Magicka amount to push the shield strength in the first place. It just caps at 60%. This is used in emergency situations. It will coat your health, and you will be protected for that amount of damage, and it does consider your resistances as well. So use this when you're in trouble. Don't spam it. Inner Light is, of course, in the Mage's Guild skill line. This is the 1st ability to unlock. Starts off as Mage Light, morph it to Inner Light. Never touch it, leave it on your bar, gives you 5% increase to max Magicka, and it gives you Major Prophecy increase in your spell crit rating. Yes, you can have them in your potions anyway, so you don't have to use spell pots if you don't want to. But, of course, we don't have it on the back bar, unless you choose to. That's entirely up to you. Next up is Mage's Wrath. This is our Execute. So, if you go into Storm Calling, 1st ability to unlock, starts off as Mage's Fury, morph it to Mage's Wrath. This is only useful when the targets are low. So if they're above 20% health and they suddenly go down to 20% health, this will pop and explode in area of effect. But if they're above 20% health and they don't dip below that within 4 seconds, it will just do the initial hit and it'll be rubbish. However, if they are 20% or lower, every single time you fire this, it will hit them with shock damage initially and then bust and hit an area of effect, plus the target has already been hit once already, they'll receive that too. So it's kind of like a double hit almost. It's very, very powerful. It is your main execute. You want to spam this when the target is low while keeping up your dots and all the rest of your stuff. You basically swap your mines for this. Really nice indeed, but be aware of the target's health. This ability here requires the target to be over 50% before you stop firing it. This one requires it to be under 20% before you do fire it. Flawless Dawnbreaker is next. It's our main ultimate on the front bar. Now, technically, we don't really use this very often, but you can in emergency situations. It's very low costing. It starts off as Dawnbreaker, morph it to Flawless. And this is really here for passives, which we'll go over in a moment. But if you do activate it, you will do damage in front of you. You will end up doing damage over time for 6 enemies for 6 seconds. And you will increase your weapon and spell damage by 300. So really nice as an oh shit execute button to increase that damage output. But for the most part, you want to be using your back bar ultimate if you can afford to. Just depends on how much you've got in your bar at the time and how close to the end of the fight you are. Double barred the Twilight, already went over that. Wall of Elements needs to be understood because there are status effects that people don't understand in this game that I've explained for 5 years, but for those of you that missed it, I'm going to go over this. Wall of Elements, morph to Unstable Wall of Elements. If you're rubbish with your rotation, go with the other one. It lasts longer and it doesn't have a boom at the end. If you are quite good with your rotation or just favor the extra damage anyway, go with this. This changes based on the element you are using. That's right, if you're using a lightning staff, it will be lightning. If you're using a fire staff, it will be fire, and so on and so forth. Now, if you have off balance covered in your group already by another member in your team, then of course you can go with a flame staff. That will give you a fire wall of elements instead of a lightning, and any enemies that are burning inside of that wall will take additional damage from this skill. If they're not burning, they will not. However, the lightning version, if you put this on the ground, any enemies that are affected with a lightning status effect, concussion, will then automatically be knocked off balance. That's your cue to heavy attack because that's when you get the most resources back, you get double, and that's when you get the highest damage out of your heavy attack, which is 70% increase. So, if you aren't seeing off balance in your group, go lightning with this build. If you are seeing it and it is covered, go fire. Those are the two fundamental differences. Now, Boundless Storm is next, of course. This is in Stormcalling as well. This is the second ability you unlock. Starts off as Lightning form, morph it to Boundless Storms. Activate it, you'll get a resistance buff for the full duration, and you'll do shock damage to nearby enemies every 1 second. Very, very powerful. And you get a speed buff for 4 seconds for activating it. You do need to be in melee range to be able to benefit from the damage from this, but this build is very, very strong up front and can get in melee range no problem whatsoever. In fact, I'd recommend it because this does actually hit quite hard. Don't let that run out. Crit Surge is in the same skill line. This is your choice ability. You could swap this for Inner Light if your healers are really, really good and if you've got Major Sorcery already covered by your group as well. That way, you can decide whether you want to use spell pots or you want to use tripods. However, I'd recommend tripods anyway, and just don't stay on the back bar too long because your prophecy is already covered here. This is important. This will give you Major Sorcery and Brutality for activating it, but every single second that you do any crits at all, you will heal. And it will keep you alive for a really, really long time. This is probably one of the strongest healing abilities in any situation based on you doing damage. It's very, very powerful. I would not recommend taking it off, but if you're comfortable with not using it, then by all means, Inner Light on the bar. Just make sure you got the sorcery covered by somebody else. All you have to do is do damage. It lasts a very long time as well. But you have to make sure you get the correct morph. It's called Critical Surge. The other morph is a heal for the group. This one is healing you every second you do damage. Same skill line again, Lightning Flood, and yes, this can be swapped. So Lightning Flood is the basic ground-based damage over time ability that we use alongside Wall of Elements. These two need to be on the ground at all times. This, swap onto the front, do your front bar stuff. But, again, it can be swapped. It does lightning damage over 10 seconds, once a second, and it has a synergy attached to it that your group can take and do extra shock damage in area of effect. It's very, very powerful. I would take this morph over the other one. But if you want to do more single target damage rather than area of effect, remember this build has got a lot of area of effect on it, you can, of course, go for the Fire Rune from the Mage's Guild skill line, Scalding Rune. This is placed on the ground, much like the mines, but then when it pops, anything caught inside that mine will all individually have a single target damage over time flame effect on them for 14 seconds. Very powerful, really nice single target. Can apply a burn and status effect, so all good. And if you've got a DK in your group, of course, increasing the flame damage to the target will enhance this as well, just like it does on a dummy. But most people may want to stick with this Lightning Flood instead. The difference on single target is only about 2 or 3k, but I mean, it depends on how anal you want to be with that kind of stuff. If you want to go for the extra number single target, then by all means swap out. It's also cheaper as well, so there's a few benefits from having the other skill, but this does have massive AoE, so I'd recommend this one over the two. Greater Storm Atronach is our main ultimate. Now, you can swap this out, of course, if you prefer. Some people like to use Suppression Field. In fact, we used to put it on the front bar, but now you get ultimate back from Fighter's Guild abilities, so we don't. But you can have Suppression Field, which will stun the room for 10 seconds and do magic damage every second. 12 seconds, in fact, not 10. Or you could use the Destruction Staff ultimate, which is Elemental Rage. Starts off as Storm, morph it to Rage. Whichever element you're using right now on that particular bar will obviously be what comes out of the ultimate. So if it's a flame damage, you will actually get 15% more damage per tick. But if you have lightning, you don't get the increased damage, but you do get 2 extra seconds on it. So it kind of balances out, and it can apply off balance as well from concussion. It depends on what stuff you're using as to which version you'll get, but both of them are very, very powerful. But the one we're using the most of the time, if we can help it, is of course the Daedric Summoning one. So Greater Storm Atronach. You can use the other one if you want. Yes, it does apply AoE damage, but this one lasts a lot longer and it has more health. So this one will actually apply lots of shock damage to enemies when it first lands and then zap a single target over and over and over until it dies. Now, this does apply or have a synergy effect with it as well. If anyone in your group takes the synergy from this Atronach, they will grant themselves Major Berserk, increasing their damage output by 10% for 8 seconds, and at the same time, it will also buff this Atronach. So what you see on the dummy from anything using this particular skill is not what it can actually put out overall, because what you have to consider is, although you may have Minor Force in your group, this particular build doesn't carry it all the time, depending on the version. You may have Berserk from this, but we can't get it ourselves, so we'd have to take the synergy off somebody else. So there are lots of different synergy and mixed effects that don't really apply on the dummy that you will see happen in content. So if someone else has got one of these besides you, take the synergy. Very nice indeed. Use this as much as you can. It's really cheap as well. Now we're going to go into the passives. Important stuff, of course. You have to understand these, otherwise you won't know how the build works. This reduces the cost of everything. Ultimates, skills, the lot. Get that. This will heal you every 0.5 seconds that you do damage with a dark magic skill, and it scales off of your max health, so the higher the health, the better. Daedric Tomb puts down 3 mines on the ground. Each one of them could all pop at exactly the same time. If that happens, you'll get 1 heal. If 2 of them pop at exactly the same time, you'll get 1 heal, but there's 1 left on the ground. If that goes off in a second, or even half a second, it's going to heal you again. If you put it on the ground and enemies run in one after the other, and it goes pop, 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 that's 3 heals. And yes, this can crit, which means if you crit heal, you heal with crit surge, plus you've got this bonus here, you can double dip on that heal. 1 mine critting can heal you twice. 3 of them critting, you see where we're going with this. It's very nice for your survival. After blocking an attack, your next skill will be cheaper. When you cast a dark magic ability, you get Minor Prophecy, increasing your crit chance, as does your group for 20 seconds. Really handy indeed. Your mines actually dip into a lot of bonuses there. They immobilize, they do big damage. You can hit multiples at once or multiple targets. You get prophecy from it. You can heal. You do it all. Really handy stuff. Daedric Summoning is obviously a very important skill line as well. You restore 300 magicka or stamina when one of your non-ultimate Daedric Summoning abilities ends. The resources returned dictated by the ability's cost. So if you spam damage shields, for example, in a really, really difficult situation, you actually get resources back after it runs out. And again, you may or may not see the difference for that, depending on the player, but it's an important passive nonetheless. Reduce your ultimate cost by 15%, which is massive. This will increase your health recovery and stam recovery, so our survival and CC bar is all really nice. And of course, increases your max health if you have a Daedric Summoning ability active on yourself. So this actually counts. This before used to be if you had a pet active. Now it's just if you have something active on yourself. So if you do have a damage shield on, you have Bound Aegis just sitting on your bar, or you have a pet active, this will apply. Bear in mind, of course, if you don't like the pet, I mean, it is free damage. Even if you're not activating it, it's free damage. But you can swap to this if you prefer. Massive, massive Magicka bonus and more resistances. Yes, you'll get less DPS, but your skills will be slightly harder hitting, and of course, you've got extra resistances. The choice is yours, but I'd recommend the pet, obviously, but that is an option if you don't like the pet. Stormcalling, of course, increases your mag recovery. Quite simple, get it. Increases your physical and shock damage. Yes, we have an abundance of shock damage as this class, so lightning is better. Depending on how you set your character up, of course. Increases your damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% current health they have. Sorcerers are a little different to other classes. Yes, we have an execute, which peaks, obviously, their low health. But this gives us a boost of damage based on higher health. So if the enemy is 100%, we do 10% more damage. If they're at 90%, we do 9% more damage. If they're at 10%, we do 1% more damage. Our damage dips the lower the health, but we can then plug it with the execute. But up front, we have massive burst potential. And increases your weapon and spell damage for each sorcerer ability on your bar. As you can see here, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the front. 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the back. Actually, 5 on the back. So we've got 10% on the back bar, 8% on the front. We do actually have more than that, but we're going to get to that when we get to the Fighters Guild passives. Now, we are using double Destro. Understand these passives. Tri-focus, incredibly important. Heavy attack on your lightning staff. All damage that you do will be duplicated in area of effect to all close by targets by doing 100% of your damage to them too. So the big pack of ads at the back of the room there behind this particular character. If you heavy attack the front one, the rest are all going to get hit. It's massive. So again, this build is designed to utilize heavy attacks for our resource return while using a heavy cost spammable, but we do still benefit from the increased heavy attack damage that we are spec'd for, and it works in area of effect. So you can melt a room. Wall of elements on the ground, off balance target, heavy attack it, everything goes splat. It's really simple. Now, we do get extra spell pen for our Destro staff or Destro staff abilities. We do, of course, have enhanced status chance for all status effects for holding a Destro staff, which means more off balance for us or more burning if you're using fire. And all area of effect damage you do is increased by 10% while holding a lightning staff. So if you are using a flame staff on the back, this will actually be stronger, because if you use a flame staff on the back, you put down Wall of Elements. Wall of Elements is an area of effect ability. Obviously, flame staff only increases direct or single target abilities even. Its area of effect, and when you swap to the lightning on the front, you now benefit from the lightning passives. So you place it with fire, you buff it with lightning. However, just bear in mind again, we have been over this already, off balance is important for the build. If you don't have it, don't put a flame staff on the back. Now, all of our area of effect skills, so we've got these major damage over time abilities. These are all very, very effective, as is our heavy attack, and the splash damage from that is also buffed by the further 10% as well, so it's huge. Also, if we kill an enemy with a Destro staff, which will be a light attack or a heavy attack or Wall of Elements, then, of course, the ulti as well, you will get Magicka back, and the other part you don't worry about, that's for Frost staff. We are using 5 light, 2 medium. Get all of these passives, they're all very important. This will increase physical and spell pen. This will increase physical and spell crit rating. This will increase your resistances. This will increase your mag recovery and reduction to cost for Magicka skills. And this will reduce your effectiveness to snares and, of course, sprint for cheaper. So the more light pieces, the better for that. Medium, the 2 pieces that we benefit from are actually going to give us increased crit damage and crit healing done. And we're going to have stamina recovery and reduction to cost for stamina stuff, which is not that important, but the recovery is. This will give you a sneak bonus, meh, whatever. This will increase your spell damage and weapon damage as well. And this will increase your movement speed and reduction to cost for dodge roll. So, dodge rolls are cheaper. We've got a big stamina pool. That's quite helpful. This is going to help us with increasing our recovery so that the pool gets filled quicker, so we can dodge roll more often, block more often, and sprint more often if we need to. But critical damage and spell damage combined is the main reason for those pieces there. They're really helpful. No heavy at all. Ignore that. Fighters Guild is important. We're not using any of the skills except for the Dawnbreaker, but we do benefit from this. Increased weapon and spell damage for it being on the bar. Remember, all sorcerer abilities give you 2%. Dawnbreaker gives you 3%. So while we had 10% on the back, we've actually got 11% on the front. This here will give you 3 ultimate for every kill you get. You are going to get so many kills, you're going to be spamming your ultimate. And of course, your Fighter's Guild abilities do 10% more damage. If you do fire this with that passive, it hit harder. Mage's Guild is important, but it's not game-breaking. So obviously, we've got this ability here. So if you do have this ability, it will last longer. This ability, it will be cheaper. We're not casting it, so you don't need to worry about those two passives. This, however, you do want. This will increase your maximum magicka and recovery while on the bar with any of these skills per skill. So if you had Meteor on the front, for example, you'd lose weapon damage, but you'd gain that passive again. So we've got 1 at the moment, which is 2% across the board. If we had 2, it'd be 4, and so on and so forth. This is not that important unless you're using the Scalding Rune on the back bar, in which case this will give you Empower for 3 seconds, but generally by the time you swap round to the front, it's gone anyway. So it's not the end of the world if you don't have this passive. Just try and get someone to use Gallonway or a Necromancer Empower skill in your group to give you that extra damage. Bear in mind, our light attacks and heavy attacks are boosted to hell with stack and bonuses with this particular setup and with off balance. And this 40% increase from Empower, if you have that in your group, you're going to hit so hard the dummy won't even recognize what you did earlier because you're hitting much, much higher than you would do normally. Your heavy attacks can peak on one of the setups up to around 36k per tick on the dummy. With Empower added to that, it gets way over 40. It's very, very strong indeed. So just bear in mind, your heavy attacks are important for this build. They're not the only things you do, but they do contribute to a lot. Undaunted is important. We are using 2 different types of armor. So you want to get this passive here, which will give us a 4% increase to all resources across the board for 2 different types of armor. And this is very important. Every single synergy you take will give you something. It'll be a heal, a damage shield, damage output. It'll be something. They're all beneficial. And every single one that you take will give you 4% of your resources back. Don't complain that you can't sustain if you refuse to heavy attack or take synergies. Use your basic mechanics. And of course, we are a high elf. This has been a cat in the past. Used to have really, really high crit damage. Now we don't really have that much crit damage on this particular build. We aren't anywhere near cap yet, so we've got room for buffs if we need them. But the crit damage from the Khajiit was not anywhere near close enough to what it used to be, so the high elf did slightly outperform. Can you still be a cat and perform very, very well? Of course you can. You can still be a cat, no problem. But this one did kind of bring it back a little bit and get slightly higher numbers. But here's your passives. This will give you a protection bonus if you are channeling or casting something that has a cast time. So your Dawnbreaker, very brief cast there, or your heavy attacks will give you this benefit. Also, if you cast any skill, then of course you restore the opposite resource, the one that's the lowest. So for using Magicka skills, we get back stamina. We've got a really good stam pool. We can dodge and block and run and all that good stuff. And we've got good recovery. And we get this for using our skills. It's very easy for us to be very agile with this particular build versus most Magicka setups. We get 2k max magic, which is the highest bonus in the game. And we have 258 weapon and spell damage, which is also the highest. Yes, there's a couple of races that do have this passive, and there's also one that has this, but we've got the 2 combined. Alchemy is important. Whether you're using tripots or spell pots, it's up to you. Make sure you get this skill here. This will make any of those potions last 45 seconds instead of 37, and that's your cooldown. In fact, it's 47 seconds, so it's above your cooldown. So easy peasy maintaining those. Don't let them run out. They are consumable buffs. Now, we're going to go into the champion points, and I'm going to show you the rotation. So, these are very simple. Don't panic if you don't have a lot of champion points. It's not the end of the world. It's inevitable that you're going to unlock these. So, this, and this, and this. These are all light, or white, passive bonuses. Same as these in here, that's a passive. And same as these resistance bonuses in here, these are all passives. You can get these in your own time. There's no rush. You are going to have them. And you don't need to be 3,600 either. You don't even need to break 1,000. You can get these very early on. But the most important thing for your character's progression is your 4 slottables for each tree. The green ones, not so much because they're not combat-based, but the blue and the red ones, you want to figure out which 4 slottables you should be using for your build. So, if you unlock this crit chance bonus here, just for 10 points, you can unlock this tree here. And you want to get these 2. Backstabber and Fighting Finesse. There's your crit damage for the build. Now, if you're not ever behind the target, take Backstabber off and replace it with Thaumaturge. Problem solved. You've got damage over time. It will bolster that particular damage type, including your heavy attack, so it's win-win. If you are behind the target, of course, use this. This tree here, 10 points into here, unlocks this area. and you want to make sure you've always got deadly aim and master at arms. We are doing damage over time. We are benefiting from our heavy attacks, but we're also benefiting from direct attacks, so our mines, our burst from the wall of elements, our light attacks, all that kind of stuff helps, and also they are direct as well, so they're single target. Some direct is area of effect, so master at arms boosts that as well. Some is single target. We're actually balancing out very, very well here. So, in a nutshell, 10 points here, 10 points in here. Unlock these, and you're done. The rest, put your points in as you get them. Even if you put 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, and these aren't even finished yet, at least you can slot them and get them started. The rest of it, do in your own time. There's no right or wrong for this. Just bear in mind, of course, if you want high status chance, you do want to go down this route where you have this synergy, this status increase, so you can actually apply off balance or burning more often. You are going to get them eventually anyway. Pace yourself. Don't rush. These three are easy to get. They require no prerequisites at all, so start getting these right away. Max health, max armor, and max recovery. Then you want to come down to here. Unlock this tree for 10 points. Then 10 points in here. You actually need 15 here to start it off, by the way. So 15, 10, and 10. And then get this as soon as possible. You will be killing a massive amount of enemies. Every single one you kill is going to give you ultimate if you're on the front bar. And now every single one you kill is going to give you 1,500 magicka back. We do retain our resources, or maintain our resources rather, with our heavy attacks. And we get more back by things being dead. Really, really handy. And finally, the green tree. This is not game breaking. You can choose to do whatever you want with this, craft, steal, whatever. But for the sake of most everyday situations, I would recommend you unlock this so you don't use your soul gems to charge your weapons as often. This, so you get higher quality loot from chests. This will make you faster between fights, as long as you're not in combat. This will make it so that you may not even use a potion, although it counts as giving you the buff anyway. And this one increases the duration of your food. These are not really going to affect you massively in combat, but they are quality of life regardless. Now to rotation. The really, really, really easy part. There's going to be a couple of variations to this for those of you that are more advanced, but in a nutshell, make sure this is running. This is your Boundless Storms. Make sure that your Crit Surge is running. And that's it. So those two need to be up 100% of the time. Maintain those buffs. No matter what you're doing with the rotation, no matter how new you are, maintain those. One of them is almost 24 seconds long. The other one's 33. Now, when you want to start the fight, you put down your first AoE. This could be the Rune or Liquid Lightning or Lightning Flood. Put down that. Light Attack. Activate one of your two buffs I just told you to maintain. So for argument's sake, we're going to go with Boundless Storms right now. So, Flood, Light Attack, Boundless. Then, Light Attack, Wall of Elements, swap bars. As you can see, instant off balance, nice and easy. Now what do we do? So, you would Light Attack first to fire your glyph, and then fire your mines. Then Heavy Attack. Fire your mines again. Heavy Attack. You got two options here. Fire your mines again. Light Attack, activate your pet. That pet should already be with us, so you'll buff it. Or, instead of putting in the final mines, you can just skip that and just Light Attack buff your pet. So to recap on that, if we were swapping to the front, light mines, heavy. Mines again, heavy. You can go mines again and heavy if you really want to, but what you should do is activate your bird and swap bars. But if you think you're clever, sneak in another mine, then hit your bird, and then swap bars. So you can get away with 3. Some people can get away with 4. Back bar is slightly different this time. You still put down this. You still light attack, but use your other buff. So one rotation, you light attack Boundless. The other rotation, you light attack Crit Surge. So it should look like this. Like that. Light buff, light wall swap. Light mines, heavy attack. Mines, heavy attack. Mines, light budgie, swap bars. Or again, you can squeeze in another heavy and just hit the bird and then swap bars again. You don't have to squeeze in the extra mine if you don't want to. This will be on the website. Next time you come around to this bar, light attack, Crit Surge this time, light wall swap. Now, that's going to be really annoying because the budgie's hitting this boss now. So we're just going to use this for an example. So to simplify, 1, light boundless, light wall swap. Light mines, heavy attack. Mines, heavy attack. You can do mines and heavy attack again if you really want to. And then hit the budgie to buff it and swap bars. You can sneak in an extra mines. Go to the back bar again. Light, crit surge, light wall swap. Now, if you are more advanced, you can, of course, practice this. But when a target is off balance, what you can do is you can time your rotation slightly differently. You can spam the mines on the front bar during non-off balance, and then heavy attack rotation during off balance. Now, that will take a bit of practice, so you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just mines, heavy, mines, swap bars if you want. But if you want it to be a little bit more advanced, you can do stuff like this. What you do is during off balance, you make sure that you are heavy attacking between your mines. Once off balance is gone, you simply do this. Light mines, didn't fire, light mines, and again, and again, and then swap, and then carry on. As you can see, each one of them is actually hitting the target twice. So, check this. Now, we'll take a little bit of practice, but as you can see here, this will be 1. This will be 1. This will be 2. It's all about aiming. So if you can get your cursor between the feet of the target, no matter how big they are, no matter how small they are, the hitbox is the same. So practice that. If you don't want to practice it, don't worry. Wall of elements with your dots, spam mines, and heavy attack. Keep it simple. If you're a new player, like I said, you will get very good results. If you're an experienced player, you will get insane results, especially in big ad pools. Now, of course, we're going to go into fashion. So we are using the same as we did before, actually. We're using the Assassin's... I've gone and lost it. The Assassin's League Heavy Helmet with Apostle Light Jerkin. We're using Apostle Light Shoulders, Dramaphra Medium Hands, Dramaphra Medium Belt, then Apostle Heavy Legs, and Dramaphra Medium Feet. The weapon is, of course, the most awesome staff in the game, in my opinion, which is the Ebon Shadow Staff. And, of course, we're using Abnathans on the back to break it up a little bit. Everything we're doing here, color-wise, is pretty much all black, apart from a couple of blue areas, which is, in fact, Black Reach Blue. You can see one there and one here on the staff. But that's just to match kind of the Dramaphra colors. That is all going to be on the website as well, as is the rotation, as are all the build options, and everything will be explained there just in case you missed anything in the video. Bear in mind, people, this isn't a 100 to 150k hitter, not a chance. However, in content, it hits very, very hard in all situations, whether it be single target or area of effect, regardless of who's behind the control pad. In fact, we've actually got some players that play this with one hand. That's right, one hand, and still hit 80 to 90k on that thing there and can apply themselves in content. It's got survivability, it's got its own resource management, and it's got its own damage output for both single target and AoE. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there's nothing in the game this can't do, and I've even got solo videos with it. So, thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate support. If you are not subscribing already, please do, of course, hit that button. It is free. And if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, the website xynodegaming.com, Instagram, and don't forget, I stream on Twitch every night from 10 PM UK time onwards. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.